Hi everyone, I wanted to share with you some ideas for using up supplies. What happens as it gets close to Christmas, I start to pull out sort of my Christmas papers and stamps and things like that I haven't used for a long time, and I get re-inspired because I kind of got over using some of these products last Christmas, but I come back and try and use them again. So one of the things that I seem to have plenty of is these kind of paper packs that generally come with the magazines that you buy. So I usually get a few different sort of styles or collections in the pack, and I've got several of these. But what you get is usually a sheet or two of some cut out images, and then you get some corresponding papers. So this one has like multiple styles or designs in each of them, and I often find that I do start cutting them apart and then there's bits and pieces missing, and yeah, but I don't actually end up using the whole thing. So what I'm going to try and do today is show you how to try and use up some leftover supplies. So last Christmas I had this set which was, I think it was called Nordic Noel, and I couldn't tell you who designed it, but you can see there was a collection of papers in here, and then there was some little sort of cut apart things. So what I've done, these were sort of in bits and pieces. What I've done is taken some time to cut these apart. I did forget to cut that one apart, and then and I've pulled together all the papers that were in that collection. So there's also some little buttons here that are sort of just, you know, you cut them out, but I don't like the buttons that you cut out. They just don't look realistic to me. So I decided not to cut those out, and instead I would bring in some wood veneer buttons that I already have. So this is where you start to bring in some of the supplies that you think might match this collection. So I've got assorted sized wooden buttons in there that I could colour if I wanted to, or I can leave like as raw wood. And then of course when I opened up my drawer full of wood veneers, I thought that perhaps some little stars might go well. So this is a mixed pack of stars and hearts that I picked up, and so I might pull out some of the stars out of there. And then in the same drawer of my wood veneers I also had various sizes of stars. So some of these might be a little bit big for cards, but I thought I'll just have them out just in case. Now, going back to the buttons, I decided that I may have some other buttons on hand, so I got out these three little packs, and I have a whole big tray of these buttons as well. But these ones are sort of some of my favourite buttons, and particularly the green buttons here I thought might coordinate well with the papers, and there's some white buttons in there as well. So, and then out of this one, a lot of these are really sort of bright colours, but I thought that these red buttons here, pull one out, might actually match with those colours. So I've pulled all of those out and just set those to the side. Because it's a Christmas project, I also have this little container that's sort of leftover embellishments from Christmas the previous year. So anything little or small that's very Christmas specific, I just put into this container, and then every year I break into it again, and so I thought I'd pull that out and just have that handy. A couple of other things to add to the project was I wanted some baker's twine, so I pulled out three colours that I thought would coordinate with those papers, and a couple of washi tapes that aren't Christmas specific, but the green and the brown match quite well. So have a look at those. So they're actually Kazaz washi tapes. And then I started to think about stickers, and all of the stickers I went through had, you know, silver or glittery sort of things, and I didn't really think that that matched with the neutral tones, but I thought maybe some liquid pearls might work. So that's just the white opal, so a little bit of sheen but not too much. Then I needed to think about the cardstock that I was going to use, so I just pulled in again some of the similar colours from the collection. So I've got some white cardstock, I've got some of that green, I've got sort of a sandy colour there, a red card that I just had left over, and I've got a few different sizes. And then from the similar coloured cardstock I've just cut a few mats which may need to be trimmed, we'll see how we go. And then I've just got some leftover bits that I had from cutting those cardstock mats, so I'll put those to the side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you one card. I don't really have an idea of what I'm going to put together, so I'm just going to have a play around and hopefully it'll all come together nicely on video. And then hopefully over the next few videos I'm just going to use this sort of collection of supplies to create some really interesting cards for you. So I think this time I'm going to start by picking out the paper that I'm going to use in the background, and I think what I'd like is, it's really just a matter of playing around with the supplies and getting the right combination. So I think I'm going to go with those, but I do need a mat for this. So I'll go back to my brown cardstock, and I'm quite happy with the size of that mat. Actually, I might pick a different card because I think that's a little bit narrow. Any of these any wider? And this is just how I play around with the products, is just to sort of start layering them up and seeing how they go. Alright, let's have a look at the width of these cards. One is a little bit narrower, so we'll use that one. I might end up trimming the card down to fit that. I think it helps to have it sort of pre-cut and have an idea of what you want it to look like. But it doesn't always work out exactly to plan. So I think, actually what I might do, I've got this bigger mat here, and that's one of the reasons I kind of keep something left over, is I've decided I'm going to go with that colour combination there. So I do need to trim this down. So the way I do this is really just to cheat. I'm happy just to measure, and that's 10.5 by 14.75. So what I want is a 1/4 centimetre border all the way around. So I just want to take 1/2 centimetre off. So I want 10 centimetres by 14.25 on this piece of cardstock. So just measure. That's pretty much a perfect square. So it doesn't really matter which way I cut it. And I do, once I cut it, keep all of the scraps off to the side, because you never know when you just want to mount something small. And we said 14.25, so I'll bring the arm out. And hopefully, without taking too much time to measure, that's pretty much a perfect size. Now again, I want to go in 1/4 of an inch on each side, which means I want to take 1/2 centimetre off that measurement. So we were at 10, so now we're at 9.5, which is actually where that cardstock is, and we want to be at 13.75, so we will trim off some of that green, and then we've got ourselves our layer to start with. So that's the base of what I'm working on. And what I'm going to do is, I actually think I don't need that blue. I think I'm just going to use a strip of this. So I'm happy with the width, but what I need is 1/4 again of that. So we were at 9.5, so now I need to trim this down to 9 centimetres. And that will give us that 1/4 centimetre all the way around. There we go. Alright, now I start thinking about the embellishments that I'm going to add. So I'm just going to move all of this to the side. I quite like this, which has caught my eye straight away. So maybe that could go... Oh, try and put my mat back in would be good. There we go. And I just start playing around with the layout. So I quite like that look. That normally I wouldn't mix the cream and the white, but I quite like the sort of contrast of that. Okay, and then we start looking at what embellishments we have. Now that matches in really well with the colours. Do we need some washi tape there? Probably not. And maybe some baker's twine. I'm thinking white. Just open this out and have a look, because that green matches quite well with that darker green there. No, I think the white gives it a cleaner look. And I'm thinking perhaps some little stars, so let's just tip them out. And what I'm looking for is these sort of size stars. Yep, I think those ones. So I'll just pull a few of those out because I'm going to randomly place those on the card. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. Maybe some baker's twine to go on it. I think this one is just a little bit too much. I just want a hint of red on that card. So what I'm going to do is start assembling this card. So the first thing I'm going to do is adhere this to the green base and then put this strip down, so I can trim that off before I adhere it to the rest. So my double-sided tape. You could use the tape roller if you wanted to. I tend not to with card making. I tend to keep that for scrapbooking. Yeah, I just find it's sort of easier to get the tape where you want it to go when you're making cards. So now again, the beauty of this concept is that you can use the supplies that you have, and I guess what I'm showing you is the process of how I would go about piecing it all together. And you know, the fact that you've got sort of kits left over is actually great for colour coordination, because all of that is done for you. So it's not like you're trying to pull together different kits. Now this would be an example, this strip, where I would use the roller, and I've got the American Crafts this to that dot adhesive. And one of the other things I would do is do it on a scrap piece of paper, so I don't end up with adhesive all over my mat. So what I want to do is get a rough idea of how long it is, because you never know, I might want to use that strip on something else, and then just run the roller adhesive all the way along. And then what the beauty of the dots is that you just peel it up, all the sticky stuff that's left over stays on the side, and it's got really good coverage. So we'll just line that up at the edge, and if you go over it, doesn't matter because you're going to trim off, but keep as much of it as I possibly can. It's gone down a little bit crooked, so let's just straighten that up. There we go. And then turn it over, just grab the scissors and trim it off. Okay, so I'll keep that to the side because I might use that again later. And then what I want to do is to actually mount this onto the sandy coloured cardstock. So again, double-sided tape. You could, if you're using good quality double-sided tape, just leave it like that, but I don't like my cardstock to be able to be lifted off, so I tend to wrap it all the way around. And if it's a larger card, or when I'm doing scrapbooking, I might put more in the middle as well, but for the purpose of this, just all the way around the edge is absolutely fine. Okay, then we're going to mount that onto our final mat. And then what we're going to do is look at this baker's twine around the card. What I'm thinking, I've got an off-white one that might work better on this card. Actually, I was going to say, I actually don't mind the combination of both, but I think Actually, what I might do is actually put it on the white background and then make a decision. No, I like the white better. So what I'm going to do is actually wrap it around. You know what, this is not going to make it all the way around twice, so I'll get the longer one. And the way that I measure baker's twine when I'm working with it is to go, okay, that's the front, that's the back, that's going to wrap it around roughly once with a bit of leeway. So let's go the front and the back again, and then give myself a little bit more to tie and cut it there. And that should be plenty to get you all the way around that cardstock. So you don't have to measure exactly, just roughly should do the trick. Okay, so what we want is to get it roughly where we want it, but then once you've done the trimming you can adjust it. Once you've sort of tied it up and trimmed it where you want it, that's where you might overlap it, so I'm going to swap these over. Bring one to the top and one to the bottom. Just bring it down a little bit more. There we go. Trim it there, and I'll keep that definitely because I may use it later. Okay, and then what I want to do, I've lost my sentiment, here it is. What I want to do is actually to mount this over the top. So I'm going to use some magic mount or foam squares or whatever you like to call them. And because this paper is actually quite, it's not like, you know, a chipboard piece or something like that, it's quite stiff, it's actually quite easy to move, or pliable might be the word that I'm looking for. So I'm actually going to put a fair few pieces on the back, quite generous with it, because what we don't want to see happen is we don't want it to sort of bend on the card. So I think that should be generous enough, and what I'm going to do is then mount that onto the card like so. Just move that clear. Just got to get the placement right, make sure I'm happy with it. So always a good thing to do is to kind of just rest it there and see what you think, and when you're happy with the placement, that's when you kind of push it down and be quite firm with it. So I'm actually going to mount this onto our cardstock before I decide where to put those stars. So again, just all the way around. Now I'm not very careful when it comes to measuring my adhesive, so I tend to just roughly measure like that, as I did with the baker's twine, and then just strip it, lay it over the top. So sometimes it does overlap. The good thing about the double-sided adhesive is it actually peels off quite easily, so underneath that will come off fairly well. One of the things that can become an issue is if you send it over the edge, and I don't know if you can see, but I have just sent it over the edge slightly, but it's so easy to just fold back on itself. So just if you do happen to do that, rather than trying to trim it and getting sticky stuff all over your scissors, you can just fold it back. And particularly because this one has some dimension at the back, it's not going to make any difference at all. And it's so thin that it won't usually affect the dimension or the lack of dimension on a card if you don't have any. So just get that in the right spot. And then we want to just adhere that down. What I've got is some glossy accents, which is clogged up, and this is what we're going to use to adhere our stars. So unblock that, and then I'm going to look at our star placement. So just what I really want is a scattered kind of look, so just kind of throwing them down and seeing what you come up with. Maybe one there or somewhere around there. And don't want to have too many. I'm thinking maybe that's enough. So then I'm going to adhere those one by one, and I'm not going to move the other one, so I just make sure I get them all in the right place and balanced well. So just push it down. They're so light you could use the roller adhesive again, but I tend to find, especially if you're sending cards through the mail and things like that, that it just has better grip if you use the glossy accents. The other thing is sometimes these wood veneers can have a side that's better than the other, or more attractive than the other. So for this design particularly, I'm really looking for that clean sort of look. So I want to go for the best quality side. I don't know if you can see there, but that one's got a little bit of a sort of brown streak on it. So I'll actually put the glue on that side and turn that side over, because you'll get a more clean look on the other side. Okay, just a couple to go. There you go. The other thing, if you're trying to go for that scattered sort of star look, is to sort of make sure that the stars are all on different angles as well. So you don't want them all perfectly straight. You do kind of want them at a bit of an angle, so that it looks like they're just falling stars. So there's quite a cute card. It didn't take too long to make, and I'm endeavouring to use up all of my supplies. Hopefully you enjoyed that video, and yes, stay tuned because you'll see other videos using these products. Alright, thanks for watching.